Joining us, the New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker. As you know, he just set the record, I should say, this week for the longest floor speech in the modern history of the U.S. Senate. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. I want to talk about your marathon speech in just a few moments, but let's get to the breaking news first. What kind of impact, Senator, are you expecting these massive Trump tariffs? What kind of impact do you think they will have on American consumers?
Well, I'm already hearing an explosion of a reaction from across my state, and people from across the political spectrum are angry and upset because they know the impact it's going to have in New Jersey on jobs, on businesses. But for our consumers who are already struggling under a president this last 73 days that said he would cut their costs, before he even did this, inflation was going up. Before he even did this, the stock market and people's 401k accounts were going down. Before he even did this, the consumer confidence was down. Before he even did this, grocery prices and eggs and things were going up. So this is now going to put about a $3,000 to $4,000 added increase for the average New Jersey family. Will be paying between $3,000 and $4,000 more per year just to meet the basic needs that they need for their family. And for a lot of families, they can't afford that. They're already struggling. And they're seeing a president who made a lot of really powerful promises break them over and over again.
America's allies, Senator, as you know, and America's trading partners have very quickly slammed these Trump tariffs. Many foreign leaders across the world are vowing to retaliate big time. What is your message to them as they weigh how to respond?
Well, look, Trump declared a unilateral war, not on one country, not saying, hey, we're going to meet the Chinese. He did this over all dozens of countries and all over Europe. And so he's now declared a war, and every action has an opposite reaction. And so we're going to see now some really bad things start happening as the president continues with this dire, bad policy. And I am so frustrated. I am so angry. There's no strategy in this. There's no thoughtfulness in this. There's no pulling together a bipartisan group of business Americans saying, hey, let's think this through and do this wisely. What he has done is going to have catastrophic effects on the American economy, and frankly, a lot of our closest allies are going to be feeling that pain too, and they're going to retaliate against us. And so globally, he's pulling out of, he's turning his back on our NATO allies, globally on people we need critically right now to meet the challenges from the Middle East to the challenges in the South China Sea, as opposed to strengthening alliances, creating more possibilities and promise. This man is isolating America and really endangering us economically, and I believe in other foreign policy aspects as well.
Senator, in a J.P. Morgan analyst note to investors today, they're warning the tariffs threaten to plunge the U.S. and the global economies into recession. Markets around the world have fallen in the wake of these tariffs. U.S. markets are now down sharply as well, as we just reported. Are we looking, do you believe, at a potential global recession?
The risks are there. Economic analysts are saying the risk is growing significantly. You see large business associations across this country now coming up with dire statements to try to shake this president back to common sense. So do I worry? Yes. But I keep centering in my concern the average New Jersey and the average American, who what they're going to see in their lives is prices going up. The challenges that they're facing, that they had hoped, at least some of them, at least half of our country who voted, really hoped that the president would bring some relief. In 73 days, there's one question people should be answering: am I better off than I was 73 days ago? And the answer unequivocally, in terms of the cost of everyday goods, the cost of living, is you are not better. And so we need to brace ourselves, but I'm telling you, we're not helpless. We have agency. More and more Americans have to step out. If it wasn't enough, there's a tax on veterans. If it wasn't enough, it's a tax on Social Security. If it wasn't enough, what he's doing in threatening and menacing Medicaid that millions and millions of Americans rely on. Let this be the moment that you say enough is enough. I'm going to start to stand up, speak up, and push this president back from hurting my fellow Americans, because his policies so far in this country have caused chaos, and now they're making disaster actually more probable.
President Trump says these tariffs will bring jobs and manufacturing back to the United States. The Trump administration is acknowledging there will be what they call short-term pain, but say the U.S. will benefit in the long run. How do you respond to that?
You know, there is a place for strategic, thoughtful tariffs. Democrats and Republicans have worked together at times, especially targeting them towards people that are engaging in unfair trade practices, like the People's Republic of China. So I'm not saying that that's not what to do, but what he has unleashed on this world through what he has done is going to cause so much harm to people that America's really, frankly, works with in partnership. And remember what our economy is. It is an economy that's driven in many ways by consumer consumption, service economy. And what he has done is created an environment where our economy is going to be shaken. And a lot of the people, as we've said already, who are predicting what's going to happen if he stays this course could be disastrous. Now, we know this, Wolf, that in America, people with wealth have done very well over the last 20 years. Heck, under Obama alone, the stock market doubled. But most Americans, 50% of us, haven't seen that share of that wealth. They've been struggling, especially recently with high inflation and other high cost challenges. We have a real problem in this country that the same president that is causing this kind of economic disaster right now is also threatening Medicaid, Medicare, prescription drug costs. I could go on how he's hurting the average American that's struggling. And so this is a time in our country that more good people of good conscience have to begin to stand up and speak up. Because I've seen it before. We stopped Trump in the first administration by a chorus of people across the political spectrum saying, do not take away the Affordable Care Act and health care from 20, 30, 40 million Americans. I was proud of people like John McCain and Lisa Murkowski who stood up to Donald Trump and actually backed him down. This has to be one of those moments where we stop him from doing what he's doing. And this tax plan he's about to try to push through Congress that's going to cut Medicaid by $880 billion, that's going to blow a massive hole in our deficit by trillions of dollars that are going to make our children and our grandchildren have to pay for that debt. All to do what? To cut taxes on corporations and the wealthiest Americans, because a disproportionate number of those tax cuts, the majority of those tax cuts are going to go to the wealthiest who are already doing okay. What is he doing for the struggling American who's been asking from Democrats and Republicans alike for relief from these challenging economic times? Well, the answer he's given is I'm going to make it harder for you. I'm going to make it more difficult for your families. I'm going to make everyday living more expensive. This we have to stop.
Senator, as all of our viewers know by now, you set the record this week for the longest speech in the modern history of the U.S. Senate, speaking for more than 25 hours. This wasn't a filibuster. So what do you think you actually accomplished? And has the reaction to this speech been what you wanted?
Well, I'm grateful to now, over these last 2 days, to hear from a lot of people who were appreciative that I centered their stories, that I read letters from veterans, read letters from teachers. I read letters from people who have really been struggling in America, and especially over the last 72 days, where chaos and fear and cuts and the firing of our veterans, the ending of the Department of Education, I read their letters. And so for me, it's really important that folks know that Democrats, that leaders in this country recognize the pain and hurt of people, recognize that they have a responsibility to do more and to stand more. And I'll tell you, the most moving things I've heard is from the Americans that we don't talk about that are standing with more endurance than me. The person at an IHOP in Newark, New Jersey, who's pulling 2 shifts on her feet, an extra shift if she can catch it, just to provide for her family. Or some of the farm workers in New Jersey that asked me to come out and work a day with them. That was the most back-breaking work I've ever done. I did it for one day and I was sore for a week, but they do it every single day. There are so many hardworking Americans who stand every day just to try to provide for their families, and they want to know who is standing for them. And so this was 25 hours, but I, like many of us, realize that we have to still do more. We still have to fight harder because the threats and the challenges still remain. And Donald Trump showed it yesterday that he's coming after this country, not to make it better, not to lower costs, but to do things that cause more pain. And so I'm in a fighting spirit, ignited by so many of the voices from my state, and I'm going to keep fighting until we end a lot of the pain and the hardships that this president is heaping on average Americans.
Senator, one final question, a quick one before I let you go. How are you feeling after standing for 25 straight hours?
You know what?
Lighting the lamp on the power play.
I have
We
not.
seen
My
that
body's
a
not
time
back
or
to
two,
100%, but my spirit is on
season,
fire and
and his
soaring.
17th
And I'm
in
just
the last
grateful for a lot of the
25
people
games. He said afterwards
who've been
he
reaching
was
out to me
disappointed that
and
his
encouraging
team couldn't
me
get
to
the
keep
win
going, keep
in what
fighting, keep
eventually turned
pushing,
out to be a pretty
and
rough and
appreciate
tumble third
the stand I
period. But
took.
the bigger picture
Well, we
is
hope
that he is
you
now
get
only
back
a
to
hat trick
being
away
very,
from
very
breaking
strong.
Hall of
Senator
Famer
Cory
Wayne
Booker,
Gretzky's
thanks so much for
31-year-old
joining us.
all-time